Thank you for joining me for this Spring Equinox 2022 rune reading. The rune that came out when I selected with my eyes closed is Berkana, and I couldn't have been more delighted about that because not only does it match very well with the theme of the spring equinox of the uprising of nature, fertility, and so on, it is also perfect for the times that we are going through. And I did wonder whether the rune that came out would be perhaps a poor match with the theme of the equinox, but actually it couldn't have been a better fit because this is a strong but feminine energy, the energy of very much of new and fertile beginnings, of birth, of celebration, of new projects, new ideas, new starts. The theme of new starts is especially strong, and never more so when there is difficulty, or there has very recently been difficulty, and there are problems with moving on from it. Now, obviously, I am not projecting this towards those that are existing in war-torn countries or who are concerned about loved ones that are living in those countries, because I feel that, to do so would be a little bit of an insult. So I want to make that clear. But even so, even people that are perhaps concerned about loved ones might find something in this reading that is a little bit inspiring, a little bit helpful to them. But it's a general reading for people that are living in, average, ordinary circumstances for a lot of people. So it's the theme really of the energies that are there, rather in the same way that, an astrologist can look at the energies that are around. This is a different way of looking at the energies that are around, or that's one way of looking at it. So to come back to the reading and this lovely rune, Berkana, which is also known as Björk, which is birch, and it just is so lovely to feel this, to see this in a personal reading is wonderful. And it's also so delightful when there has been difficulty or there is difficulty, because it does show blessings to be grateful for. And there is a feeling also that, it's quite a lucky rune. It also, if it appears in a reading where with other runes that are more challenging, it does indicate that, something is easier than expected. But it's also very much a rune that asks something of you. It asks you to respond to the creative impulses within, the impulses for newness, whether that is to do with ideas, attitudes, projects, or courses of action. To give an example of that, somebody might have decided that they're going to go for a daily walk, for example, and they haven't done anything about it, but they easily could. With this rune, it is always saying, now and the very near future is the perfect time for new ideas, attitudes, or projects, for a new start in some way. But we have to react, we have to do something with that. Another example would be that sometimes we will see something and think, oh, I'd really like to do that. Perhaps it pops up online or we see a poster somewhere, but it's up to us to get on and do it. And it's kind of like that at the moment. But matching this to the theme of the spring equinox, where light are dark and dark or are equal, we are also challenged to use our creativity individually and collectively to balance the light with the dark. And when we have gone through difficult times, there is, of course, the need to focus more on the light, the brightness, the joyful side, to bring in a sense of balance. And this rune is saying that now and the near future is the perfect time to do this. And by the near future, I mean before the 1st of May, the beginning of summer, when a different energy is present for a new period of time. So this is the time period that this reading is focused on. But what this rune also says is if you don't respond to your own impulse for something new, and within this time scale, it can be one of those things where you lose the best moment, or you just let it slide. So sometimes this is about literally grabbing the moment when it comes up. But we are much more able to do that when we're alert to the possibility that such moments can easily come into our lives. And then it is up to us to grab that moment, to pick it up and to do something with it. Rather like accepting the baton in a relay race. We have to run with it, don't we, to make any progress, to make that race work. And this isn't really about competition, though. I don't want to create that impression. There's a greater feeling of ease that comes with it, a sense of heading towards that which is joyful, that which allows more of us to be expressed in a happy way, is something that I always relate to Berkana, along with the new start aspect. But Berkana is also sometimes associated with Freya, the Norse goddess linked to fertility, love, sex, gold, and magic. And yes, also war. So there is the balance between light and dark, between harshness and softness, that is also present within this association too. And that feels quite important at this time. And it feels important also in a collective way. Although, of course, when more of us change and become awake to different aspects, different ways of thinking, different attitudes, then that does change also the energy within the collective. And each of us is a tiny, tiny, tiny part, but it's still an important part. And who knows what it is that is different that we will be throwing into the melting pot of life because of some little new start that we made. We don't know, do we? But we do know that there is a collective energy, a collective force operating in tandem with other forces. And we can't fully understand the magic and the majesty of something so great. And yet it is wonderful to know that we are a part of it, and that the choices that we make today not only have an influence on our lives tomorrow, but also possibly in a wider way, because everything is part of creation and we are a part of it. And as I was focusing on this room, I was very conscious of an image that came in intuitively of a phoenix rising from the ashes. But this is a new phoenix rising from the ashes of the old. and its wings want to spread wide as it rises. And I am reminded, as I think of Freya, and the links between the beautiful qualities of birth, fertility, love, sex, gold, and magic, all of them creative and balancing forces, and also the discord of war. That this is something that we just have to, as a species, learn to do better as we are going into the 21st century a little bit more. Because the killing machines of war have such awful capacities. And we have to learn new ways. And I honestly feel, when I think about Ukraine, and of course the many other wars that are going round in the world, whose circumstances are equally terrible. But when I think of what is happening in Ukraine, and I did do a reading on this that I published on YouTube on the 12th of March. I didn't look at the outcome because I didn't want to see that the suffering was likely continuing for a while longer. I didn't want to know that. But I did want to look at what is hopeful and what is regenerative that can come out of this. And I honestly feel, intuitively, very strongly, that the regenerative capacity of the Ukrainian people will be absolutely extraordinary. And it will set new standards for what can be achieved in destroyed communities, for what can be achieved that is inspirational in the way that societies operate and go forwards and work for betterment. I really feel that in the strongest possible way, that will be part of the future. And that isn't to belittle the awful suffering, the terrible circumstances in so many places, especially Mariupol, and the absolutely unspeakable situation where a theatre that was being used for sanctuary was bombed. But I want to end on a positive note. The feeling of the phoenix that can rise from the ashes of the old, the new phoenix carrying new ways and spreading its wings wide to create a better balance in our world between peaceful forces and destructive forces, and better ways of handling these in the lives of individuals and the lives of communities and the wider world. And I feel extremely hopeful that something better will come, and that we will look back to the spring of 2022 as a time when so many new things that were born back then, that had their starts back then, in the smallest of ways. Because that which exists, which lives in the hearts and minds of people, was able to change and to grow and to create a different trajectory of evolution in life as we go forwards, as we make the most of life. Thank you for joining me.